The following is an interview I had with author Marva Carty. Hi, greetings everyone. Thank you for joining us on Tropical Literature Creatives. I'm your host, Kevin George, and today we have with us the marvelous Marva Carty, author of Mari Loves Mangoes. Marva, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be able to take part in your show.
Just for the record, which Caribbean island, I should say, are you associated with? Do you have like ties to?
Well, my primary tie is to Trinidad, as I grew up in Trinidad from the ages of 4 to 18. But I'm also of dual Caribbean heritage. So my father is from Anguilla, and I have actually lived in Anguilla. So I have strong ties to Anguilla as well.
Okay, now then that makes my second question a bit more interesting. What I usually ask is, I give a scenario, and the scenario is this. Imagine we're meeting each other at the airport. I'm coming into Trinidad, you're coming out of Trinidad, and I'm asking, hey, Marva, since you're leaving the island, what do you recommend that I do when I come here? What place do you recommend I visit? Who do you recommend that I see? If you could recommend one thing to me.
Ooh, that is, it's to pick one thing. And I also think it's dependent on the person. So if you're somebody I don't know, we're just kind of like passing acquaintances, it makes it a little bit more tricky. But I think from my recent visit to Trinidad, one of the things that, because I was there in August, and one of the things I really enjoyed doing that I hadn't had much previous experience of was going on a hike. And that may not be for everyone, but I would say generally take a chance and go and experience some of the nature opportunities at Trinidad, because I think that's one of the hidden gems that we're just kind of really either discovering or rediscovering in more recent times.
Okay. I mean, I knew that I thought it was going to be a tricky question because of your multiple citizenship. And you could think of anything as it relates to maybe Anguilla or even where it is that you stay right now that you would recommend to persons.
So, I mean, if I take kind of each region or each country, so we just spoke about Trinidad, but I would also, so if I looked at Anguilla, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer in that for those, the beaches in Anguilla are fantastic, and you can't really go wrong, even though it's such a small place. Everyone has its own identity. The waters are, crystal clear. I know every island claims to have crystal clear waters, but let's be honest, it's not always the case. But Anguilla is just, just for beaches is absolutely stunning, as well as fine dining. The quality of the restaurants, whether that's, your local kind of, I don't want to say hole in the wall, but your local favorite, as opposed to something that might be more touristy and high end. The standard of cuisine is very high.
Okay. I mean, your answers are really interesting. And when you mention beaches, I'm just imagining persons from different Caribbean islands saying, all beaches are better. No, all beaches are better. But your answers are great. Thank you for just a little bit about yourself and the book. I mean, in terms of the book, Mari Loves Mangoes, I mean, what could you say was your inspiration for putting the book together?
Well, Kevin, it kind of came quite unexpectedly. I think like maybe a lot of authors, budding or established, the kind of impetus for writing and creating tends to come from an early age. You have an interest in that. And for me, for a long time, I'll be honest with you, I felt like, oh, what I would have, what I produce may not be good enough, or you kind of compare yourself to, certain people. And it was about, I would say, maybe it was almost just over a year ago, this time, when I was just sitting in my study, and the idea just came into my head, and I just started free writing. But it was interesting because it was quite a musical kind of download. So you know how in Trinidad we have the soca and the calypso, whatever. I could just feel this rhythm kind of coming out of the words, and and I thought, where did that come from? It was just like a bolt out of the blue.
Okay.
And then I put it down, and I would say, when I really looked at it, I thought this was also a culmination of the last year or two prior to that, where we had all the Black Lives Matter, and this clamor for more examples of representative books and media and things that were more positive. And so it was a combination of all of those things, and this just kind of came together as this inspiration, because I felt that apart from just having a book for children, or a book for children that looked like myself or would come from experiences like myself, I didn't want it to be too heavy-handed, because I found like a lot of books were coming out that were, and there's definitely a place for teaching certain things of our history and our background, that it will never be denied. But everything was skewing very heavy.
Okay.
And particularly when you're dealing with a certain age group, there's only so much that they, or if anything, they can process of these things. And I felt like there needed to be a bit more of a balance. So that's really, some of the thoughts that were going through my mind at the time when I was bringing this together.
Okay. I mean, it seems like you put a lot of thought into how to convey the ideas to persons of a certain age group. So I'm curious as to your background. I mean, obviously you're a writer, but do you have like any background in education and teaching children? Because I mean, it sounds like a lot of research went into that area.
I've never done any formal teaching. I was a tutor at a young age, when I was in secondary school, to students younger than me. I had my own little lessons class at CXC and A-level. But I also I have a background in international student admissions and recruitment. So after I graduated from high school in Trinidad, I got a scholarship to go to the US, to Williams College. And after my time there, I was recruited by Williams to be an admissions, an assistant director of admissions. And the focus for me was international students, minority students, and with a focus on students from the Caribbean. So they sent me back so I went to Trinidad, I went to Barbados, I went to Jamaica, so the top schools, in those countries, to recruit students to come to the college. And it kind of started this wave, within 2 to 3 years, of Caribbean students, very high caliber Caribbean students coming to the school, because we were very fortunate that the school had quite a very large endowment, that they could afford to pay for the scholarships for these students, because as we know, the US dollar and our currencies is, it's a lot, and on top of which these schools were, I think currently it's like 60,000 US a year to attend. So we're talking about, Ivy League sticker prices. So even if you are, a very high achieving student, the likelihood of most of us to be able to afford that is very slim. So so that was my focus at that time, and that's kind of where I guess maybe my experience of putting myself in the perspective of students. I had to do a lot of reviewing of applications, going to different schools in the US as well, to recruit. So it wasn't just international, but also within the US. So all those things I have given me an extra extra skills in seeing things from different voices and different perspectives.
That's interesting. Just to touch on one of the things that you mentioned, I mean, you mentioned skills. In putting together the book in particular, are there any skills any other skills that you would have learned that would have been of more use than others when it is that you were compiling or doing this project?
Yes. One of the things that I point out is that even before I started the process of putting the book together, I think for a good year prior to that, I had decided, I think it was like January 2020, we get up, new year, new me, etc. What are we going to do this year?
Yeah.
And I decided I wanted to do a book. At the time, there was a different project in mind, but I am the type of person, I don't tend to throw myself into things headlong without doing some kind of prior research. So of course at that time as well, we were within a couple of months we were in the throes of the pandemic. Life had changed for everyone. And I started paying attention to what was happening with the whole process of books and marketing, creating, how to bring a book to market. So I joined a lot of groups. I asked a lot of questions. I stalked people online to see how they would. When I say stalk them, I mean like I followed their journeys through social media, etc. Not stalk.
I know what you're saying, Marva. I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So there was a lot of observation, asking questions, and seeing, and also I started to notice certain things kept coming up as the stumbling blocks for new authors, or so I paid a lot of attention before I even started. That's not to say it still wasn't hard, but that really helped me kind of then not. So when I got to the point where I was gonna do something, it happened fairly quickly. But one of the things I would point out is, because my book is a picture book, it's a very, very different process to another type of book that's just text, or so that was an additional learning. And I think what helped me is that I had observed, I also followed people online and looked to see, certain things, but it's a different process because you have to, it's like a dance between you and the illustrator. And I think what helped as well is having kind of spent most of my career in marketing teams and working with certain brands and companies. I had an understanding of things like briefs, putting myself in the mind of an audience, that kind of thing. So that really helped as well.
I mean, you mentioned a lot there, Marva. And no,
Do you want me to break down, you
no,
know?
no. I mean, one of the things that stood out when it is that you were talking about this process was the research that you put into it. One of my other questions is, in addition to being an author, what else it is that you do? And from my research, I understand that you own your own publishing company, and I don't think that's by chance. Just tell us a bit more about it. I mean, I'm not advertising, but at the same time, I'm advertising. So tell us a bit more.
No. Yeah, so I can clarify that. As part of the, this research process into what works and what was very important for me, Kevin, is that I wanted to be able to have creative control over the entire process of doing this. And this is why I wanted to self-publish or be independently published. And, that comes with, certain challenges, but I think ultimately in the long run, you're better off, especially if you have quite a strong vision of what you want. I think that ultimately you're better off. That's not to say if, I don't know, Macmillan or someone came knocking on my door, for a book deal tomorrow, I would say, no, thank you. I'll definitely think about it, if it's right. But I think, we generally have, and this is no criticism on anyone, because if you're not in the industry and you're not in the environment, there's certain things you're not going to know. I think that we kind of grew up thinking, if I write a book and it's published by an established company, then you get the big bucks, you get everything taken care of, etc. Now that's the case for a rather small percentage of people, very small handful of people. But the reality is that for most people who are published by what we would consider traditional publishing, they may get what they call an advance on earnings, and that advance could be, I don't know, $5. It could be 10,000. It could be whatever. But if their books do not sell, they have to pay that back. They have to give that back. It's kind of like with a record deal, and so there's a lot of assumptions, or and I say you would not know this if you don't know people in the so you may be given money by a publisher, but it's not necessarily free and clear. And then also, particularly the way that traditional publishing seems to be working in these times, it can be quite celebrity-led. So you'll see a lot of books, published by, famous people and whatever, and most of the publishing, marketing and promotional budgets will go towards established names, because they don't want to necessarily take a chance on a newbie or whatever. It's more risk to them, which you can understand from a business perspective. But if you are, new on the, it means that even with a traditional publishing house behind you, you may still have to do a lot of the work yourself, So there's a lot of things that people would not know, or, whatever. So what I decided is that, and this is through also speaking to a lot of other people and being in certain groups and author groups, and, and I decided that I would create my own imprint, which would, in the first instance, represent my books. But my aim is to not only have books, produced by myself, but to have books by other authors, but representing that same vision, which is the vision for my company is to educate, empower, and entertain, right? So, that is the umbrella in which all the projects that I want to bring forward will encompass. And I feel like for me, that's the best way. And also I recognize through certain transferable skills that I have developed through, through past experiences. I
Yes.
have the capacity or understanding to do that. But not everybody would necessarily, be that. It doesn't mean that I don't get help or I don't get support. As I said before, I'm in a number of communities, and I have been very fortunate in this year to have taken part in certain conferences with other independently published authors and people who have been very successful, who have given me advice and answered questions and all of that. So it's that's really the vehicle that I feel is going to propel me forward.
I mean, you mentioned a couple of interesting points. I mean, along the lines of publishing, the persons who have been interviewing, a lot of them, they indicate that they have mixed experiences about them. Some have really good experiences. Others indicate that they have like horrible experiences. There was one author who I spoke with. I hope that she's hearing this, that she went through an experience whereby, she was putting a lot of effort to get the book published, but even to the point of our conversation, nothing had really come to fruition as yet, and she was becoming very disenchanted. So a lot of persons have mixed experiences with publishing, but coupled with that, you mentioned two things. You did a lot of research, and also you networked a lot. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of publishers don't tap into. You see that networking part, because there are a lot of persons, like I said, they have good experiences, they have bad experiences, but the amount of time that you have to have bad experiences, if you interact with persons who would have gone through the process before yourself, you could learn from them and hopefully not make the same mistakes. So it's really
definitely Kevin. And there's just to kind of elaborate on some of the things that you raised there. There's a few different issues that come out of that. So you kind of have to look at it. So you have within, I guess, authors, you have like I guess any other kind of sector, you have a lot of different types of people, and the same with publishers. So if I am, say, I just say I'm Joe Blogs and I want to write a book. I know nothing about writing a book. I know nothing about process or whatever. I just know that I have a book in me and I want to get it done. And so I've heard from my friends or from someone that, I can write this book and I can put it up on Amazon, and then my friends and family or, whoever I want can then buy this book. And, then, that might be the route to go. So what you see is, and technically that is correct. And that is one of the beauties of, of the modern world we live in, that there's been a democratization of these processes, in that if you really want to, you can do it, right? But what a lot of people what Joe Blogs wouldn't realize until they actually, okay, I've done my book, I've written my book, I may have had somebody read it over, or maybe I haven't. I've gone into Canva or something and I've created a cover, through Kindle and, whatever. And I put up my picture and, I've got my barcode and my ISBN number, and I press publish and write. Okay, my book is live. I'm all excited. I tell everybody. And then what? You think, okay, I've done what I have to do. But what that person doesn't realize is, as the Calypsonian said, the journey now starts, right? Because writing a book and marketing a book and selling a book, two totally different things.
Exactly.
They're like two separate jobs, right? And the tasks that are required to do one and the tasks that are required to do are, not necessarily, related to each other. And this is where you find a lot of people get caught out because no one tells them this, they're not gonna, you're not gonna think. You think, oh, okay, I've got my book and it's live and I tell people, and then, all the sales and whatever will come flooding in. Or they happen look to see, well, who else might have written a book like mine? Or who else has got the same title book as mine? Or did I check my book or ask someone to edit it too? Or, all these things, right? So there's so many, and that's just one example of a type of course or whatever. Then you have someone who's like, okay, I am gonna invest money I've been approached by this publisher. They said they like the look of my book, and they're gonna give me this package and they'll take care of this and that, and whatever. And they call those, a lot of people don't realize they're called vanity publishing companies. And what they do is they prey on people who want to get their books out or whatever, and they promise them, X, Y, and Z, and say, we'll do this for you, that for you, and that for you, and then your book will be a massive success. And they could charge them any amount of money. It could be any amount that these people will, and they sucker people in, and it's very flattering if you get this email or something out of the blue, when someone said, well, I think your book could be the next, etc., or, you've got real, and not to say that you don't, not to say that your book isn't good, but, you have to kind of have that buyer beware thing, like, how did these people find me? And what, and what am I actually getting for this money that, and then they're talking about thousands of dollars and, so you have that as well. And it can be very overwhelming, especially when as someone who just wants to get their book out, you have so much information coming at you and so many people with conflicting, viewpoints. Do this, do that, that it can be a bit of a minefield, so yeah, you have to, I think I'm really glad that I did do that kind of checking out things and, whatever beforehand, because I think it saved me a lot of heartache, because Kevin, I see it every day. I see in these groups and I see the, posts from people saying, I paid for this, that, and the other. And then either people disappear or they don't get what they want, or, I see it happening again and again.
I mean, it's really unfortunate, but I'm really glad that it came up in conversation here, because it just shows that it's not an isolated incident, that a lot of persons are experiencing like this. And it's really important that you get in touch with other persons, find out really, and like you said, do your research, because at the end of the day, you could say you're the one to catch. You're the one to catch.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, we're just going to change gears a little. I've been asking a lot about your background and the work and
yes.
stuff. But let's just get into the book a little.
Yeah.
Mary loves mangoes. You spoke a little bit about the inspiration, everything. But in the book, well, which character did you enjoy writing the most? There are a couple of persons who are presented, both main and background like. Who was your favorite character in the writing?
Well, I'm not gonna pretend, but Mary is me. I was obsessed with mangoes when I was at it, and still am, but I just can't get my hands on them here in England as much as I can. But Mary is essentially a version of me. I was quite precocious at that age. And I think that kind of comes out in, her kind of, fun side and humor, and as well, of course, the love of the mangoes. I also wanted to make sure I represented a family unit that felt, a very loving and, well fleshed out and rounded, and also to have the little friends, and that what I try to make as authentic a Caribbean feel as I could, without necessarily saying specifically it was Trinidad. But obviously that is what, literally colors my inspiration. But I think that it's a story that a lot of us can to about, having too much of something that we love, and being moderate, and it's an important lesson we learn as children. Well, hopefully most of us learn as children. Some people might not have learned it yet.
What you pointed out there, that kind of leads me to my other question, which is one of my takeaways from the book as well. I mean, what were your intentions for persons to take away from the book? And one of my takeaways when I read it was obviously too much of a good thing.
Yes.
I mean, my other takeaway was that of sharing. I mean, in addition to those, were there any other themes that you wanted persons to take away from the book?
I think sharing, and which underscores friendship, being selfless, and thinking of others. So I mean, you don't want to, I think, because you're dealing with a certain age group, you don't want to pack in too many lessons, but I think if they can take away even just one of those, that's a success for me.
Okay. I mean, seeing that this book had just like, let's just say for example, just 3 takeaways that you wanted persons to take away from this book. Do you have intentions of doing any other books with more adventures of Mari for persons to get other lessons from?
Yes. So ultimately I would, the plan is to have 3 in the series. I am hoping to publish the second one imminently. Likely would be November. That's what I'm pushing for, or definitely before the end of the year for the second one. Third one still to be written, but hopefully early next year. So yeah, that's the plan.
Okay. I mean, coupled with these things, when it is that you're putting together the book, I mean, is there anyone who you could think about that it would have been difficult to write this book without?
Yes, I think my family, my mom, my dad, my sister, because, there's all versions of them in the book, to be honest, or inspiration, the characters, you can see the little touches if you know them, from the hairstyles to my dad's guitar in the background in the living room, my little sister, so I think family for me would definitely have been a big inspiration.
Okay. I mean, just one more question. Well, actually, a couple more, but I could just think of one more right now. And I probably should have asked it earlier, but why writing? I mean, it sounds like, you have like experience in other fields doing research, etc. Why writing?
Because writing is part of my, I guess, my arsenal or my toolkit. So, there's lots of other things that I have interest in doing, but I think writing is a flip side of me being a compulsive reader as a child. And ultimately, I think that's how a lot of writers, I guess, heavy readers then manifest as writers, because they take in and then they output. So yeah, I think that's where that comes from.
Okay, I just have a couple more questions, but I'd just like us to take a short break and just come back.
Sure.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. Again, I'm your host, Kevin George, and we're returning to our interview with the marvelous Marva Carty. For those of you who are just joining us, before the break, we covered a lot of stuff. We looked at details as to her inspiration for the book, background in terms of publishing, and some of the challenges that publishers in the Caribbean face as well. So if it is that you just tuned in, you could probably listen to the prior part to catch up. But we have a few questions that we're going to get answered before the end of our session. So Marva, in terms of the persons who are listening to the interview, who read the book and who are really interested and think to themselves, you know what, since Marva did it, I want to do something like that as well. What advice would you give to them?
Oh, there's a few things, but I think basically the first piece of advice I would give is to definitely go for it. A lot of us get kind of bogged down in self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And I think, I would encourage, if anyone wants to do the same, wholeheartedly go for it. So that's the first thing. Secondly, if it depends on the type of book, if it is a children's book or picture book or similar, whatever book it is, always remember who your audience is, and try your best to determine how best that audience, what they're looking for, and what how they would be receptive to your story. A lot of times, I think we have something we want to say, and we don't always think about who that message, or who is the person or persons that would be receptive to that, and what is the best way to get that across. So I would say think of those things. Those would be the two main things I would advise.
Okay. Just like the book, you're not trying to overload with information, just basic and simple stuff so that persons can follow. I like that.
Yes.
I like,
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of your book, if it is, for example, a lot of persons like myself go through it and think it's a really good book, is there anything that we can do to help, you as authors have your book a bit more recognized and available to other persons?
Yes. So one of the simplest things that can be done is to, if possible, give a review from whatever platform that you purchase the book, whether that's Amazon, or whether that's to myself directly, or any other channel. Please, where possible, give feedback. It doesn't always have to be glowing feedback. I mean, yeah, we like positive more than negative, but
Who doesn't?
whatever. And if it's something that you enjoyed, share with others. So I think those are the greatest things that as an author you can, the greatest gifts you can give an author is sharing your feedback with them, or sharing with the world, if you did enjoy, or anything resonated with you about what they produced.
Okay. I mean, as you mentioned, like giving reviews and so on, I got a copy of your book on Amazon. Well, I have a Kindle application, so I got the book there. What other channels a person can explore to get a copy of your book?
So for the audience in Trinidad, I am pleased to say that recently we have had a placement in paper-based bookshop in the Normandy in St. Anne's, but we also have the book available in 3 locations of Excellent stores. So we are now in Movie Town, C3 in San Fernando, and Brentwood Mall in Shogunas. So for those who don't have Amazon, or the ability to purchase online, we're trying to find more physical distribution platforms, and I'm very excited and pleased about the partnership with Excellent Stores.
Okay, great.
And paper-based.
In terms of your sister island, or your co-parenting island, I should say, of Antigua or Anguilla.
Anguilla, yes.
Thank you for correcting me, Anguilla.
Yeah.
I mean, if it is that they were interested, what channels can they use?
Well, at the moment they would have to source online, but I'm working on having physical copies available in Anguilla as well. Just watch this space.
Just curious though, I mean, distribution channels, was that a challenge as well when it is that you were putting together your books?
It's very much a challenge, particularly with the Caribbean. And as I said, this is, it's a work in progress, so we're looking to see how it goes. But, the challenge is, finding, a cost-effective means of either printing or distributing the books. That's an ongoing process. So we'll see how things go, because I would love to have more books readily available in the Caribbean. And even from my recent trip, I have noticed, in my market research that, certain places, there's not actually a lot of Caribbean books visible in the main bookshops, or not as large a selection as you would expect. And I think that definitely needs to improve. It's great to have all the international titles and whatever, but we need to have more of our own and more readily available.
And that is a fantastic statement right there. And that's one of the reasons for a program such as this, because authors like yourself who do really good work, it's really good to, when it is that you find yourself in certain environments, to find literature that you could identify with. Mango,
yes,
something as really as simple as that. I have mangoes outside and there's this book about mangoes here. I can relate.
Yeah.
And
another thing I would say, this might sound, I don't know if it'll sound controversial, and is not, because I'm kind of thinking aloud here, so it may not, I hope it comes across with the intent that I wanted to. I think what I have seen in terms of the books that are represented in shops, we have our very esteemed writers and novelists, and whether that's the classics like the Naipaws and the Lovelaces and the Walcotts, etc. The very well respected across all arenas, and then the new wave of Caribbean fiction writers and academics that are making amazing waves, worldwide. You can more readily find those, and that's great. But I think that there's a whole spectrum of different types of works where you might say, I don't want to say more mass market, but I think that there needs to be a wider variety available, because people read all kinds of books, and all levels, all genres, all ages. And I feel like that's probably where we need even more representation. So you don't necessarily, I think maybe for the person just coming off the street and going into a bookshop, they may not necessarily feel, I want to read high fiction, or something that might be a little intimidating. They might want to just pick up something that's more populist, or easy to digest. And I feel like there should be a wider spectrum available to the average consumer of all ages. And I think that will come with time, because I think for us, let's be honest, we're now kind of really getting to the point where we're accepting our own as having value. Because we have a tendency to think everything from outside is better, right? Yeah. So it's a journey, so I hope you understand what I'm saying, but I think that it needs to encompass all different types. And I think it's just, and there are people writing all these things, but they're not being brought to the fore, or they're not given any opportunities to be seen wide. And I think that's where, if possible, there should be more emphasis in giving kind of a voice to a diversity of different types of writing.
I mean, on that point, at least I'm aware, at least in Trinidad, but I'm not too sure if it happens in the other islands. NALIS, the National Library of Trinidad, what I observed that they've been doing recently is they've been having these ventures with first-time authors.
Yes.
Like a couple of YouTube videos, like based on like first-time authors, for them to tell them about themselves and about their writing material. And I think in conjunction with that, they have these awards ever so often for first-time authors as well. So, I mean, what I'm
Yes.
that in addition to these two things, the material that they put together, they would more than likely be available in libraries in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm not too sure where, I'm not
Yeah.
too sure under which title, but I'm thinking that they would be available there. I'm not too sure if the other islands, if they have another library association that does something like this. But if it is that they don't, I think it's at least a good place to start.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up Nalis because I had the opportunity to do a reading with Nalis in August, and I must say, I only heard about the first time authors program when they had the last ceremony in July. I saw they posted it online, and I thought, oh my gosh, I wanted to be part of that. You know, but I missed the window.
Mhm,
But I have found them so helpful and receptive and just open. And they're, as you said, they're doing good work in flying a flag, for these initiatives. And I said to them, because I went there and I spoke to the staff and I said, anything I can do on my end to help amplify the work that you're doing, I will do so. But they're great. And another organization, Bocas Lit, doing fantastic work.
mhm,
And they're even doing an event here in England at the British Library at the end of October, where they will be, and they have a day featuring I forget how many Caribbean authors, but they're doing like a UK tour.
mhm, mhm.
So they're not only doing stuff within Trinidad and within the region, but I've seen them do I think I've seen them do stuff like via Zoom and stuff with the US, and so they're people doing good work. We just need more people to support them and more people to help, build up that visibility. But yeah, there are people flying the flag for that representation. But we could always do with more.
Okay, okay. I mean, just one more question before we wrap up this session. Well, you're from Trinidad, so you're acquainted with what we have something a book called Republic Readers. We usually use that in like certain schools to help persons with their reading and their comprehension skills.
Mhm.
Just curious, I mean, if it is an organization such as that were to approach you and say, here's what we like, Mari, we like some of the takeaways that persons have from this book. How would you feel if it is that we asked you to craft a story to be used to teach persons of that particular age group? What would your response be? How would you respond to something like that?
That would be amazing because I think that any opportunity to help the young people, with literacy and developing those skills and helping to strengthen, all those vital parts of their education, I would definitely be open to that. I was very lucky and privileged in that my parents not pushed, I should say, they really encouraged my reading because when I look back now at the amount of money I cost them in books, I would say because I would read any and everything, and I read so much that I developed a speed reading habit.
Really?
Yeah, I read very quickly. So I was going through books just running through books like water. And couldn't keep up. My mother used to have to buy books in bulk from Naipold and Arima, like negotiate with them, like to buy the Ladybird books, like all kind of corners that have books, because and of course I'd be a library and stuff, but I just, if I had the internet back in those days, whatever, I probably would have never left the house because I didn't. I thought I would be a very twisted child because God knows what rabbit holes I would have fallen into. But yeah, I was a voracious voracious reader. And obviously that helped me in school a lot. But yeah, my parents never kind of made it an issue. They always encouraged it, did their best to keep up, same for my sister. My sister was actually more of a writer than me. I think I was more into just, yes, she's also a very, very good writer, and I'm trying to encourage her to get on the same route as me. But she's also one of these people with many talents, and it's a matter of just pinning down when you have time to do this and that and the other. But yeah, I would definitely love to be involved in something like that. That would make me feel like I'm really contributing something or coming full circle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be amazing.
Okay, that is fantastic, and I really hope that this recording gets out to the right person. So guess what, we have an author there who's interested. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Yes, yes. And I can't say too much at this time, but my next book has a fair amount to do with reading. So it would be great if something like that or similar opportunity, it would really align with my next project. So yeah.
Okay. Well, Marva, you've been a really great guest, but that brings us to the end of our interview at this time. I would really hope that the persons who this reaches out to are privy to the excitement that you have in terms of writing and also having your works being made known. So that being said, thank you for being a guest on our program, and we really hope to hear good things about you going forward.
Thank you very much, Kevin. It's been a pleasure to have this conversation with you. And I just want to say if anyone wants to contact me or find out more about my works, they can reach out to me at www.mangolinepublishing.com, or I'm also on the socials, as the young people say, at Instagram at Marva Carty Author, also on Facebook as Marva Carty Author as well.
Okay, of course, we'll make sure to put those items of information in the details of the program. So, all right. Thank you very much, Marva. And
thank you. Take care then.
Okay, you as well. You've been listening to TLC, Tropical Literature Creators. If you've heard something of interest or something you like, reach out to us. Reach out to our authors. Follow us on social media. We look forward to hearing from you.